Welcome to another episode of Smalls That Sell and Making Money with Woodworking, a series where we break down what's hot and trending in the big box stores, figure out different ways so that you can put your twist to it and get in on the action of these low-cost, high-profit items. I have several different items that I'll be breaking down for you guys, and I have one that I'll actually be showing you just how easy that it is to build, and another that I personally like so much that I built several for my own house. So get ready, open up that maker brain of yours, and let's get started. So the main thing that caught my eye about this first one was the price. They're wanting $228 for this reclaimed hanging crate. So essentially what they've done here is they've taken something that is super popular right now, crates, and they've created a completely with crates, and they've used that theme and created a completely different product out of it. So basically this is a hanging shelf of sorts. I can definitely see people using this inside as decoration, but I can really see people using this as decorations for their porches. Another thing that I liked about this project was its size. So oftentimes whenever you go into these sites and you see pictures like this, they look like they're actually decent sized items, and whenever you actually get to looking at the specs, they're like, this big. Not the case on this one. This hanging crate is 9 inches tall by 12 inches wide by 48 inches long. So this is a nice size build. Would I still consider this a small? Absolutely. And that's because of the ease of the build and the actual cost to make this. Now it says right in the name that they have used reclaimed wood, but like I've told you in the past, reclaimed wood in a lot of these cases can pretty much mean anything. Most likely this is pallet wood. So anything that was taken apart from a different build, like a pallet, reused, that is considered reclaimed. Or let's say that your neighbor is replacing all of the boards on their fence. Those are reclaimed fence boards. And anytime that you can use the word reclaimed in the title, you can pretty much count on getting a higher price out of it. But even if you do not have access to anything that is reclaimed, you can simply make this look old. Do not put reclaimed in the title if it is honestly not, but you could easily distress new wood to get this look, or you could actually go a different direction with this and make this a nice clean look. This would actually look really great with like a cedar or a white box and then maybe some black supports going around the side. But regardless of what type of look or wood that you choose to use, this thing is going to be super easy to build. Okay, so we're going to start by building our two long outside pieces. So each one of these sides are 48 inches long, and not counting the side supports, the box part of it is only about 7 inches tall. The 9-inch height that they're getting is including these side supports. So for me, for all of the box going all the way around, I would use two boards that were 3.5 inches wide. And for that dimension, you could easily use pallet wood, 1x4s, or even furring strips. Or if you have some wider material that you would like to use, you could use a solid 7-inch board. Completely up to you. And another thing that we're going to be needing for the sides and the rest of the box are going to be these support boards, or I'm going to call them support brackets, because they actually look like that they go down under the box and then back up, creating a support for the bottom of the crate. For all of these supports, I'll be using the same 3.5-inch material. For these two side boards or side panels, you'll need 4 of those that are 9 inches long. And just by looking at it, you can probably tell how they assembled each one of these panels. If it were me and I'm using two 3.5-inch boards, I'm going to lay those down together on a flat surface, lay my supports across it, and then on the bottom side of it, let's say that your material is 1/2 inch thick, we're going to leave 1/2 inch of overhang. And then that's going to leave you 1.5 inches of overhang on the top part, which later we'll use for installing these ropes. I would position those support boards about 12 inches in from each side, and attach those using some wood glue, maybe throw in a couple of brad nails from the outside, flip this assembly over, and install some screws from the inside. We'll do that for both of our long outside edges, and then we'll make our two small ends. You'll need 4 boards that are 3.5 inches wide by 11 inches long, as well as 4 more of those 9-inch side support boards. You'll assemble this similar to what we did with the long sides. We'll lay our two 11-inch boards down, and then we'll place our support boards on the very ends of these. Wood glue, brad nail, screws from the opposite side. Now you have your two end panels ready to attach to your side panels. And attaching those is as simple as raising up your two side panels, having an end panel flush with the end, wood glue, brad nail, screws, repeat for the opposite side. Now you have the entire crate's frame made. Now they really didn't show how the bottom of this was designed, but I'm assuming that it's going to be the exact same way as the sides. So to make this bottom, whatever material that you're using, it needs to be 12 inches wide total, and it can be several different boards to get that 12 inches. So you may actually have to rip a board by 48 inches long. Again, we're just going to lay this down on a flat surface. Then our two support boards that will attach those together, they'll need to be 12 inches long. Just make sure that your spacing for those support boards are the same as your sides. Add some wood glue, a couple brad nails, screws, you've got your bottom made. And then to attach this bottom, you'll simply turn this crate upside down, place the bottom in between your 4 side supports that are sitting up a 1/2 inch, and then use wood glue and screws from the bottom to attach everything to the frame. And pretty much the only thing left to do would be to attach your rope. And there's a couple of different designs that I've looked at. One of them actually ran the rope through the support boards, which is what I would do. And in another design where they use solid boards for the sides, they just drilled a hole about 1 inch down on the ends of each side, ran the rope from the inside, then around the outside of the box, back onto the inside, and actually using the rope itself as the support. Either way that you do it, it's going to look good and still be super simple to make. Now something like this, definitely do not try to get $228 out of it. And since it's a unique, actually larger item, this would be one of those that you would need to price test your market. So this next one made the list not only because it was trending, but because it also falls under the category of functional decor. And anytime that you can make something that looks good but also helps to organize, you've got a winner, and that's what I saw in this. So they're wanting $70 for this spice rack, and really, that's not a bad price at all. But once I show you just how easy that this thing is to make, you're going to understand how this falls into the high profit category. I'm going to start off by cutting my material to size. For the 2 top and bottom boards, they'll need to be 3 1/4 by 19 inches long. And then the 3 shelf boards, 2 1/4 by 17 inches long. And then I'll cut my side boards, which are 2 1/4 by 23 inches long. These parts will make up the main frame. Next, I'm going to take my 2 side boards, put them on their edge, and then place a mark at 5 3/4, 11 1/2, and 17 1/4. This is going to be for my shelf placement. And by using these measurements, I'll be leaving my bottom shelf just a little bit larger, just in case I want to store something a little larger. Now let's go ahead and attach our shelf boards to our side boards. I'm going to start by placing one of my side boards against a straight edge. I'm going to add some wood glue to one of my shelf boards, and then I'm just going to center this with one of my marks. Once that's in place, I'll throw a couple brad nails into the end. And then I'm going to repeat this for my remaining 2 shelves. Once those 3 are attached to one of my sides, I'm just going to flip this over, line up my second side, add some wood glue to the opposite ends of my shelves, then tack these into place using my brad nailer. Now with the center of my shelf assembly done, let's go ahead and add the top and bottom. Now there's several different ways that you can do these top and bottom boards. The ones that are in the picture, they've actually used a router and put a bit of a round over on there, and it looks really nice. So if you're comfortable using a router, go ahead and route these out. You could also just use a table saw and put a bit of a chamfer on each one of these. That would also look good. Since this is pretty much for demonstration, I'm just going to use a sander and kind of round these outside edges over. Once you have your tops and bottoms the way that you like them, let's go ahead and get those installed. For this, I'm going to glue up the bottoms of my 2 sides, place my bottom board against my straight edge, and lay my shelves out so that there's a 1/2 inch of overhang on each side. Now I'll attach my shelves to my bottom board using a brad nailer. We'll flip this around and do the exact same thing for the top. And honestly, you could use this simple design for really about anything. Now that we have the main part of our rack done, let's go ahead and put our shelf railing on. And the one from the picture, they have it butted up against the top of the shelf. So if you're looking for that look, you'll need 4 boards that are 1 inch wide by 18 inches long. But I think I want to make mine look a little different and actually leave some space between the shelf and the rail. So I'm going to cut 4 boards that are 18 inches long by 3/4 inch wide. Really, it's completely up to you. With my 4 rails cut, I just rounded over the sides and the ends just to take off the sharp edges. And while I was cutting my rails, I went ahead and cut a couple of pieces of scrap boards to be using these as spacers. I'll install this 1/2 inch from the base. And I'm just going to repeat this process all the way to the top. And just like that, we have a spice rack. So all in all, that probably took me about 30 minutes to make, and that was figuring out the cuts and everything else. So if you really wanted to make these to sell, I would say with cutting your parts out in batches, you could probably get your cut and assembly time down to about 15 minutes. Not bad at all. And for a super simple project, this thing turned out pretty awesome. And if you're wondering about how to mount this, in the pictures it pretty much just shows it sitting on a counter, or you can easily install some keyhole hangers in the back. But this is a super simple project that you can pretty much use scrap wood to build. And I hope that that video helped you to actually see just how easy that something like is to make, and that's where the profit margins come in. You can essentially make this with scrap wood, pallet wood, fence pickets, or really anything that you decide to make it out of. You can make it for dirt cheap. Now I decided to not paint mine and just kind of leave it natural, just to show you that there are several different options that you could do with this. Now you can easily do like they did with some white distressing, but if it were me, I'd have a couple of different options to choose from. Now, as far as pricing goes for something like this, They're wanting $70 for it. I'll throw $50 on mine, knowing that I have less than $5 in material and very little time invested. Just real quick, if you're enjoying this video, do me a huge favor and hit that like button below. It goes a long way on supporting the channel and also lets me know what type of content to create. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, we would love to have you. So this next one I picked out because it actually helps to solve a problem for the inside of your house. And that's going to be these corner shelves. So the problem that a lot of people run into on decorating the inside of their house versus the outside of their house is what to do in corners. It's kind of a wasted space because there's not a lot of items out there that are made to fit corners. That's where this 3-piece square corner set comes in. So another reason why this build caught my eye is because the way that it's put together adds dimension. So it's just not a flat surface stuck in the corner. And like I said earlier, this is a 3-piece set. Each one of these are 8, 10, and 12 inches square. So the only thing that you will have to do to make each one of these is to change the length of each part by 2 inches. So for an example, let's break down this 12-inch shelf. Now for me making this, I just buy a 1x12 and then you could actually get several sets out of it. I would start off with the 12-inch shelf, measure out to 11 1/4 inches and make that cut. And since a 12-inch board is only 11 1/4 inches wide, I'd measure out to 11 1/4 inches and make that cut. That's going to be the bottom for that. Then to make the bottoms for the other two, I would just measure out to 9 1/4 and then 7 1/4. Make those cuts, and then rip those down to square. The rest of the parts for these are going to be the exact same width. They're just going to be a little bit shorter. Now that we have our bottom cut, let's go ahead and cut these 2 wider back pieces, and they're going to be 3.5 inches wide. Again, you can cut all of this material from the same 1x12. So it looks like that they have used a butt joint to combine those in the back corner. So one of these boards are going to need to be 12 3/4 inch long, then the second board 12 inches long. And by having those lengths, it's going to allow the 12-inch board to butt up against the 12 3/4 board, and also leave 3/4 inch overhang on each side for our front boards. But before we get to our front boards, let's go ahead and attach these to our base. So you kind of have to picture this with the front boards pulled away. The base is set right into our 2 back boards. Now we're just going to attach the backboards to the sides of that base, just using some wood glue and some brad nails. Once that's put together, the only thing left is to put this 1-inch edging around the front. And you can see on the back of this edging, it's connected to the backboard just using a butt joint. But where the 2 edge pieces meet, that's a 45-degree miter. So each one of these rail boards or edge boards will need to be 12 inches long with a 45-degree miter on one end. Then you would just slide those into place, wood glue, brad nails. Then the only thing left to do would be to paint or stain these the way that you would like. And again, you would just repeat those super simple steps for the last 2, just taking off 2 inches from each one of your parts. Now I do like how they have staged these up in different orientations. Obviously we have a corner picture, then we have them kind of floating on the wall, just showing that you can use these for several different things. So take some notes and do the exact same thing with your staging. And again, like most things, since these are super easy to make, I would start off with several different color designs to see which ones are selling and working for you. So this is another item that you can make super fast for around $5 a set. So that's going to leave you plenty of cushion when deciding your price. So this next one we have kind of hit on before, but I noticed that these things are still staying on the trending list, and the only thing that they have really changed up is the color of the wood. And that's going to be these shutters. So everyone seems to love farmhouse shutters, be it for decoration or actually using them on their house. And my wife and I personally fall into that category. Whenever I was building my house years ago, I actually built shutters that looked very similar to this, except I used furring strips. So we wanted a farmhouse look, and we started looking at the prices of these shutters. And then I said, I can build that. So I used furring strips, some of the cheapest material out there that you can buy. I was able to build each one of my shutters that go all the way around my house for right around $5. Now essentially these shutters are built the exact same way, except they're wanting $118 for a set of 2. And that's literally all that these shutters are boards laid out that are the exact same length. We have 2 boards going across that actually ties everything together. And then this angle board that gives it that old school look and also helps to brace everything. So in this example, each one of these shutters are 14 inches wide. They're 1.5 inches deep and 36 inches tall. Your shutters do not have to be these dimensions at all. And that's the super cool thing about this. So you may be thinking, if I don't use those exact dimensions, how am I going to know what angle that the center board is going to be? So this is what you do regardless of the width of these shutters. So you lay your boards out just the way that you want them. And let's say that all together they're 12 inches wide. You'll need 2 12-inch boards that are going to go across. And again, how far from the edge these boards are, that's going to be completely up to you. But let's just say that we're going to center these about 8 to 12 inches from each end. Okay, so we're going to pretend here. Let's say that this is your shutter. little mini shutter. Don't make them this small unless you're making them for a dollhouse or something. But so you've got your first two boards on, holding everything together, and you just need to find out what this angle is. So all that you have to do is lay your board across with one corner touching one edge of the board, and then on the opposite side, that edge touching the opposite corner. Once you have that, you'll simply make a couple of marks on each end where your top board intersects this horizontal board. And that should be to that corner. Once you have everything marked, you can use a straight edge of any kind to connect your 2 points. And really, you're only going to need to find the angle on one side, because once you set your miter saw, it's going to be the exact same angle for the opposite side. Then you'll end up with something like this. So now you know exactly where to cut, even if it falls within a half of a degree. And then that'll be the only time that you'll have to do this. You'll cut this board and use it as a template for the rest of your boards. And once that's installed, you are done. These things are super simple to make. They sell for a really, really good price, especially if you could find someone building a house that would like to have farmhouse shutters. But regardless of whether you build these things for a house itself or decorations for a house, they sell like crazy. They have been selling like crazy. And if you shake things up a bit with some colors and different types of wood, they are going to continue to sell like crazy. And as always, I hope that you were able to take at least a little something from this video and run with it. So you know what time it is. It's time for you to get up, get out, and make something. Until next time, we'll see ya. Ever tried to build something only to feel completely lost? Crooked cuts, wobbly joints, tools you don't even know how to use or even if you need to use them. Yep, I've been there too. And that's why I created Woodworking Kickstart. It's the course that I wish that I had whenever I was first getting started, where everything is broken down step by step, so you actually know what you're doing and, more importantly, why. No guessing, no wasted material, no frustration. Just a clear structured path to get you building with confidence. You get detailed tool guides, never before seen instructional videos, and 6 unique woodworking projects carefully designed to naturally build your skills from the ground up. So you can spend years making mistakes and learning things the hard way like I did, or you can start building with confidence today. So join me in Woodworking Kickstart, and let's get your journey started.